covering the world of professional wrestling. This is the Signature Spot with Chris Toplack.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the latest episode of The Signature Spot with Chris Toplack. As always, I greatly appreciate your ongoing support. And if you're located in America, happy Thanksgiving weekend. Enjoy all the food, the time away from work, the drinks. Perhaps you are thankful for the time with family, or you are avoiding them. Also taking place in North America, one of the biggest shopping weekends of the year. So take advantage of great deals. It's Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know I sound like a Target ad when I say that, but enjoy it. Treat yourself, especially right before the Christmas season. We have a jam-packed show today, recapping NXT Takeover War Games and Survivor Series, highlights from the week, and I'm joined by Ryan Boman, editor-in-chief of the Gorilla Position, to discuss the rumored Elite Wrestling promotion. Rumors are flying left and right. He's going to let me know what's real, what's not, on the record, off the record, some of which I can't even air. Yeah, he has that kind of inside information, but you will hear all of that towards the end of the program. And if you want to subscribe to this program, head over to YouTube and subscribe to The Signature Spot on there. You can also listen to the show on ChrisToplack.com, TheReactionRoom.com, TheGorillaPosition.com, and wherever podcasts are available, such as iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, Spreaker, and Overcast.
Your weekly recap.
It was a jam-packed and enjoyable weekend full of professional wrestling. It started off with NXT Takeover War Games, and it ended with Survivor Series. So I want to recap both events, provide you with my overall thoughts. Starting with NXT TakeOver, it was a great strategy to add Matt Riddle and Ono to the card as an unannounced match, because otherwise it would have been extremely lackluster. That said, the lightning-fast victory established Riddle as a legitimate threat. Surprisingly, Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane was a slight letdown and a noticeable downgrade from their match at Evolution. Having Duke and Shafir get involved so early on was a mind-boggling decision. Wait just a little bit longer. And while Dakota Kai and Io Shirai even the odds, it simply wasn't enough for Zayn to recapture her NXT Women's Championship. I did not feel the same level of electricity at NXT TakeOver as I did for their match at Evolution. Aleister Black versus Johnny Gargano was easily contender for match of the night as well. Depending on my mood, I might actually put this above Ciampa versus Dream. It was a hard-hitting yet technical affair. The double black mass was brutal in a true exclamation point. Aleister Black remains undefeated at NXT TakeOver. There was an attention to detail pointed out to me that was quite impressive. Prior to the final kick, Aleister Black said the following to Gargano: "I absolve you of all your sins," and then smack, a black mass square on the jaw. This further supports the fact that Black is very in tune with his character. The best match of the night, at least in my opinion, was Tommaso Ciampa versus the Velveteen Dream for the NXT Championship. The near falls, along with the fact the championship was on the line, just added to the overall drama of this match. At 23 years old, the Velveteen Dream is arguably one of the best overall performers in the business. I'm constantly amazed by him, and as for Ciampa, somehow, some way, Tommaso Ciampa continues to get his arm raised. He retained and will face Aleister Black next. Then we have the War Games match. It was utter chaos. Everyone involved had their moment to shine, but Ricochet stole the show with his imploding 630 moonsault, if you want to call it that. It was off the top of the cage. He landed on basically everybody, cleaned house like bowling pins, and it was quite surreal to witness. You also had the Undisputed Era wearing matching camo gear in a War Games match. Again, it's the little details that matter to me. I still question why the Undisputed Era took the loss, but it really doesn't hold them back or take them off track. In terms of final takeaways for me, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are the two greatest NXT TakeOver performers of all time. And NXT is arguably the best wrestling promotion in the world, and they continue to raise the bar even higher somehow with every pay-per-view that passes. My overall grade was a 9 out of 10, and that was very well earned. For Survivor Series, a very busy card. We had the 10-on-10 Survivor Series Tag Team Elimination match. What immediately stood out to me is just how much better the SmackDown Tag Team division is. On paper, it should have never been competitive, and yet it was. It came down to the Revival and the Usos. And yes, this match also served as a reminder that the Colognes are still employed by the WWE. So SmackDown got the win, and yet it didn't even count on their final tally. In fact, apparently the backstage producers, the writers, they got it wrong, and SmackDown was supposed to lose, thus being the total clean sweep. But it wasn't. Then we had the women's 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match. It was fairly standard. The WWE is really positioning Nia Jax as a vicious heel following her stiff shot to Becky Lynch. She was booed out of the building. Then, Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura got off to a bit of a sluggish start, but the final 3 to 4 minutes of the match was simply outstanding. The final sequence was very memorable, and I'm glad that Rollins picked up the victory. I'm going to call it the curb stomp. You can call it whatever you want, but I loved the finish. Then we had AOP versus Sheamus and Cesaro, and it was completely overshadowed by the fact that the Big Show forced Drake Maverick to piss his pants on screen. It was hokey, immature, and the impact of AOP's victory was completely lost. Buddy Murphy versus Mustafa Ali for the Cruiserweight Championship. I believe it was the third best match on the card. The "This is awesome" chant was well earned, well deserved. Let's hope this leads to more individuals tuning in to 205 Live on a weekly basis. The men's 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match made little sense to me. Samoa Joe received the best reaction without a shadow of a doubt out of anyone competing in this match, and he was eliminated within the first 40 seconds. Where's the logic? And then Shane McMahon being the last SmackDown member eliminated was very frustrating. Due to its physicality, Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte was arguably the best match on the card. Line of the night, by the way, was Renee Young. This is the most physical match Charlotte has ever been in. Clearly, she forgets that she commentated for the last women's standing match at Evolution, just a tad more violent. Despite Charlotte attacking Ronda Rousey with a kendo stick, a very thunderous "Thank you, Charlotte" chant broke out. I call this the Becky effect. And also that stare from Ronda, I talk about the little details, as she stood on the top of the stage, signified to me the beginning of a heel turn. Her Millennial Man promos are just simply missing the mark, and her fan support is rapidly decreasing on a weekly basis in favor of Becky or now even Charlotte. A motivated Brock Lesnar showed up on Sunday, which led to his best match since Survivor Series of 2017 against AJ Styles. Daniel Bryan put forth a valiant effort and nearly forced Brock Lesnar to tap out to the yes lock. Daniel Bryan is the most interesting he's been in years. I love the sheer arrogance he exudes. Survivor Series definitely exceeded my expectations, with the co-main event and main event being the two best matches on the card. That being said, NXT Takeover was easily the better show of the two. My match of the night was Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. My rating was a 7 out of 10. In terms of highlights from Raw, the rivalry between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose continues to heat up. Rollins literally chased Ambrose around the backstage, while the lunatic mocked him in various backstage promos. The chase finally concluded in the middle of the ring, with Ambrose landing not one, but two dirty deeds on Seth Rollins. Ronda Rousey appeared in front of the Staples Center and cut a very passionate promo where she vowed to gain revenge on Charlotte. She then issued an open challenge that Mickie James promptly accepted. That said, the chemistry just seemed off to me. Then with Braun Strowman, he was viciously attacked by Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre. Sadly, this injury angle hits too close to home. More on that shortly. Over to SmackDown. Daniel Bryan cut an amazing promo. And he was specifically justifying his bitterness and his actions, even referencing the hyperbaric chamber where he was recovering and all the thoughts that crossed his mind. He also could be in a Nirvana tribute band. He dressed exactly like Kurt Cobain. Now, here is something that I found very odd from a continuity standpoint. Brock Lesnar is fined, $500 by Stephanie McMahon for attacking officials. Charlotte Flair is fined $100,000 by GM Page. There's a fan that actually went so far to look up her net worth and how much she makes a year online. $100,000 is a big chunk of an income. Then we had Randy Orton versus Rey Mysterio. Orton truly shines as a vicious heel with no remorse for his opponent, and the stunned reaction from the audience as he continually attempted to rip Rey's mask off was outstanding. Some great camera shots there. Over to NXT, you had Nikki Cross versus Candice LeRae, a match between two talented veterans. Highly recommend you watch that. The rest of the show is a bit of a miss. Some squashes from Lars Sullivan and Keith Lee. They will be squaring off, I believe, next week.
The latest industry news and rumors.
I'll briefly touch on this now and then more in depth with my guest Ryan Boman in a matter of moments. All Elite Wrestling AEW. That is the rumored promotion involving the Elite and backed by billionaire family, the Khans, and it seems to be gaining some real traction. In what was first reported by WrestlingNews.co, I saw it first in the Squared Circle Reddit group. Multiple trademarks were filed this month by a company called All Elite Wrestling, LLC, based out of Florida. The trademarks included All Elite Wrestling and AEW, AEW Double or Nothing, and AEW All Out. So it lists the trademark that it can be used for live streaming of video pay-per-view events on the internet. They also trademarked Tuesday Night Dynamite. Maybe not their best idea. Now, Chris Jericho, Jim Ross, many others are supposed to be involved with this. Ryan Satin of the Pro Wrestling Sheet actually reported that Chris Jericho and Jim Ross would more so be talent, and actually their involvement has been greatly exaggerated. But nonetheless, I'll touch on this in more detail shortly with my guest, Ryan Boman. It was originally reported by the Wrestling Observer that Braun Strowman's injury angle on Raw hits very close to home. The monster among men has been written off television so he can undergo elbow surgery to remove bone spurs. His status for the TLC pay-per-view is unknown. Also reported by the Wrestling Observer that Seth Rollins could be Brock Lesnar's rumored opponent for WrestleMania 35. I could not think of a better choice if that is true. The WWE issued the following press statement recently to announce Chicago as the host city for 2019 Survivor Series weekend. Here's what they said. WWE today announced that Chicago will host Survivor Series weekend in 2019, with Survivor Series Monday Night Raw, SmackDown Live, and NXT Takeover all taking place at Allstate Arena over 4 consecutive nights. In my humble opinion, Chicago is one of the top 5 best wrestling cities in the entire world. According to Fightful.com, AJ Styles is reportedly negotiating a new WWE deal that would see him on a more limited schedule. This would be very similar to what Randy Orton's current schedule agreement is. Personally, I would love to see AJ compete for about another year or two, then take over the reins as the lead trainer down in NXT. Congratulations is in order for the Bruiserweight. Pete Dunne has added a new member to his family less than 48 hours after his hellacious War Games match at NXT TakeOver. Pete Dunne announced that he is a proud father via Instagram. So once again, congratulations. On Monday, Major League Wrestling, MLW, officially announced that Conan, yes, that Conan, will be coming out of retirement to face Low Ki in a no DQ match for the MLW Championship. The match will be taking place on December the 14th. At 54 years old, I'm a little nervous for Conan's return to the ring, especially because he's had so many health problems over the past decade. Also taking place on December the 14th is ROH Final Battle. Ring of Honor announced the following matches for the television title. at Ring of Honor Final Battle will be Jeff Cobb, and he's going to defend his title against Hangman Page, and then Bully Ray versus Flip Gordon in an I Quit match. Coming up, I am joined by syndicated writer, editor-in-chief of the Gorilla Position, Ryan Boman, as we discuss a new potential wrestling promotion on the horizon.
Our topic of the week.
Editor-in-chief of the Gorilla Position, Ryan Boman, is joining me. There are rumors flying left and right about a new promotion that finally is seeing the light of day. It's supposed to be called, or it's rumored to be called, All Elite Wrestling, AEW. Now, many are saying that this first appeared on, I believe, WrestlingNews.co. I actually saw it on Squared Circle, the Reddit group, first, that multiple trademarks were filed, and it was this month by a company called All Elite Wrestling, LLC, based out of Florida. Specifically, I believe it was the stadium where the Jacksonville Jaguars play. So a lot of trademarks filed. What can you share about this? This is extremely interesting news.
Well, Chris, first of all, thanks for having me on once again. And I got to say, this is something I've been hearing about since the summer, that after the All-In experiment went successfully, that the members of the Elite, specifically Cody and the Young Bucks, were looking to expand and maybe forego signing contracts with major promotions to promote a few shows on their own. Now it looks like that's blown up into being a full-fledged promotion. Not really sure on the details, but I can tell you some background on the Jacksonville Jaguars owner, Shahid Khan, who is from Illinois, my home state, or who attended the University of Illinois in my home state. He's a real player in the pro sports world. And if he is the serious backer of this project, I think that it's got some legs. And after all these months, it sounds like, with all the rumors and all the gossip, you know what we say in wrestling, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Absolutely. And what is his net worth? I remember looking it up recently, and I think it was somewhere along the lines of like $7 billion. That was just a staggering figure to me.
Well, as we know, Wikipedia listed it as 7.4 billion. But I can tell you that he's and Wikipedia is always right, as we know from past experiences. But no, I can tell you, though, Mr. Khan's been he's an alumnus of the University of Illinois. He's been a very generous donator to the University of Illinois, a benefactor, I should say. He, at one point, and I can tell you this because I covered this, he was in line to buy the St. Louis Rams when they were in St. Louis, and he was outplayed due to a stipulation in the original lease or the original agreement with the team, to where Stan Kroenke, who many wrestling fans might know, was able to buy the Rams and then relocate them to Los Angeles. Mr. Khan ended up, instead of getting the Rams as a consolation prize, became the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Mr. Khan actually has a lot of ties here to the Midwest, and I can tell you unequivocally that he is a really good owner. He's very fan-friendly in the NFL. He seems to be a guy that would put the money into an organization and be hands-off. I don't think he would be. I don't know about the son. I know his son is also a player in this.
That's Tony, right?
Tony is his name, yes. And it's actually Shahid Khan I've seen it spelled Shad by a lot of people, but there's two syllables. And Shahid Khan is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And again, he's someone who seems to be a pretty positive owner in the pro sports world, as far as being hands-off, letting the football people handle the football franchise. So hopefully in pro wrestling, he would be the type of guy who would put up the money and let the wrestling people handle the wrestling franchise.
So what is their connection to pro wrestling? Obviously, you've noted that they have quite a connection to professional sports, most notably, FC and, of course, the NFL. But what attracts them to professional wrestling, at least from what you know or speculate?
Well, the son is apparently a very big wrestling fan. I don't know what their connections are personally to the wrestlers or the personalities involved. We've heard names from Jim Ross to Chris Jericho to obviously the Elite being thrown out there. I don't know how well Tony Khan or Shahid Khan knows any of the members or the people that are involved on the wrestling side of things. But I do know this. They have the financial backing to do it. The son appears to be a pretty big wrestling fan. And when you have that type of power in terms of not only pro sports, but network television, the cards are all on the table when you have a backer like that.
No kidding, especially if they actually say, we're hands off, Cody, Young Bucks, you guys handle the creative and the talent side of things. We'll just continue to fund this, and we'll look for our ROI, obviously, as the years progress.
Yeah, and I think they're also in a position where we talked a long time ago about the only way we'll ever see another big promotion is if some billionaire who's a wrestling fan decides to invest in wrestling. Well, now we have a billionaire's son who wants to invest in wrestling. So this may be that open window we've been talking about. At the end of the day, it's only a positive. The more money that someone, even someone who is a novice at the wrestling business, wants to pump into the wrestling industry, I'm all for it. I'm all for more people putting more money into the pro wrestling industry, whether it's the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, or it's Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, or it's Vince McMahon, or it's some unknown entity that we haven't learned about yet. At the end of the day, the more billionaires who want to throw money into the wrestling business, the more I'm for it.
And the game has changed substantially too. Eric Bischoff used to frequently talk about on his podcast how the television deal and the lack thereof really truly killed WCW, because when they removed that, and that was AOL Time Warner, without the television deal, it was dead in the water. It was a worthless company. But now with online streaming, it's a different ball game, right?
Absolutely. And I think let's look at really what fuels this whole thing. And it is the pop culture appeal, the mainstream appeal of what used to be the Bullet Club, now the Elite. I don't think it matters what they call themselves. I think they've hooked the audience. I think now the audience is intrigued enough to follow whatever their next project is, whether it's 4 pay-per-views a year under a certain banner, or it's a full-fledged, full-time promotion backed by Mark Cuban or Mr. Khan down in Jacksonville, or whoever has the money. I think somebody's seen this appeal that these guys have, the fact that they sell out Hot Topic, the fact that they did what they did with All In. I think somebody out there is willing to risk it for what you say, the return on investment. In the long run, they may invest $500 million now and make $4 billion later. It's really that kind of wrestling environment right now, where I think the alternatives are out there and people are hungry for them.
Very much so. And what I also respect about Cody and the Young Bucks specifically is that entrepreneurial spirit, because they were not making a dime, which not a lot of individuals know about, with the Bullet Club merchandise. They don't own the rights to that. That's New Japan Pro Wrestling. So when they went off and said, we're going to be the Elite now they're starting to make some money. Now they're starting to further promote this brand that they have become.
And I think the other side of things is that wrestling fans are so hungry for an alternative at this point, and they've provided that. They've become the garage band of pro wrestling. They've become that traveling road show that you have to see. So it doesn't matter if they're under the Ring of Honor banner or the New Japan banner or their own banner. People are going to follow them. People are hungry for what they are going to come up with next. And I think they're banking on that with this new promotion.
Absolutely.
This promotion is actually happening.
Now, also interesting, there are a lot of contracts that are coming to a conclusion in the WWE. Most notably, you have AJ Styles, who I believe will more than likely re-sign with the WWE, but you have Gallows and Anderson, who in my opinion would be a perfect fit for a new promotion such as this one.
I think AJ Styles is a career guy with WWE now. I think he's a made man with the company, and I can just say on personal accounts from everything I've heard from people that know AJ that he's going to slow down his schedule over the next couple of years with this new contract, but that he's committed full term to being WWE for life. As far as Gallows and Anderson, I can totally see them making that jump and probably being that top heel tag team in a new company somewhere. Like I said, I wrote about this a couple months ago. I just floated the idea. What if the elite? What if Cody and the Young Bucks went out on their own? I didn't say for sure it was going to happen, but I also didn't poo-poo the idea just based on the fact that they've got something. There is something in the palm of their hands that they control that pro wrestling hasn't seen for a while, and it's been cultivated slowly. It's a grassroots movement that has gained power, and if I were them, I don't see any reason that I wouldn't take the chance to just make that leap, especially heading into 2019 when we have so many, as you mentioned, so many people who are going to be out on the free agent market.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very true. I mean, and the other point to make as well is not just the fact that there are a lot of free agents out there, but they also could do some cross-promoting with so many other promotions as well, too, to bring some folks in, maybe for a couple different months, and then have them go elsewhere, because they have really maintained a lot of great relationships with different promotions and different promoters over the past couple of years, too.
Yeah, I agree. I think just because they don't re-sign with Ring of Honor or don't re-sign with New Japan doesn't mean that New Japan or Ring of Honor wouldn't bring them in for one night or a couple nights a year, or they couldn't work dates with Impact. Obviously, you have Chris Jericho's connections with Don Callis. You have Chris Jericho. You have all of their connections with Ring of Honor and New Japan. These guys, Jim Ross is another X factor you have to call into play if all the rumors and stories we're hearing are true. So they literally have their fingerprints and their hands on everything that's happening right now in pro wrestling, past, present, and future. There's literally no possibilities that they couldn't reach with this new company. Again, it comes down to, do they have the financial backing? Are the stories we hear all true?
I'm going to ask you something on the spot. You have the open wallet. You have Turner's money. You have Khan's money, right? And he says to you, Ryan, you can sign any 3 people that you want in the world today that are not under contract with the WWE. So let's say that they're under contract somewhere else. Who are the 3 people that you bring in and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd have to say I've got to bring in Kenny Omega, because I think that if you want to put on classic matches, you've got to have that guy. And I think right now he's the one guy that can give you that great title match. I think you have to bring in Cody. And gosh, I hate to sound like a Ring of Honor and New Japan mark, but I think Okada is one of the best workers. I think I would start a company with those 3 guys as my singles foundation, and I would try to sign anybody else I could after that.
Great picks, and all 3 are young enough that you can build the promotion around them and yet still develop new talent too. That's the beauty of it. Competition is a good thing.
I'm missing a lot of people. I mean, there's so many people in Impact with Callahan and who's intriguing, or someone like Austin Aries, who we don't know what he's going to do next. There's so many guys in England and the UK. I mean, Pete Dunne's obviously UK WWE guy, but I mean, there's so many guys all over the world. But out of those 3 guys that I just named, I think you could have a great mix at the top of your card.
Absolutely. And for more updates, for more of the rumors, stop by thegorillaposition.com. Ryan, you were one of my favorite writers in the game today. Proud to call you a friend as well. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Chris, keep on doing what you're doing. I love it. The show is awesome, and everybody needs to check out the Signature Spot.
You're listening to the Signature Spot with Chris Toplack.
One thing is for sure, pro wrestling fans will always crave a high-quality alternative. Perhaps this could be yet another one. Taking place this Sunday on the WWE Network is a 1-hour WWE Starrcade special. 8 p.m. in the East. The entire card is stacked, is taking place at the Bank Arena in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's being headlined by Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose in a street fight. You also have AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe in a steel cage match. I'm very interested to see what they air during this 1-hour special. Thanks again to my guest Ryan Boman for joining me on the program. And until next Thursday, happy trails to you until we meet again.
This concludes another episode of The Signature Spot with Chris Toplack. For new episodes, subscribe on YouTube, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or iTunes. And don't forget to follow The Signature Spot on Facebook for exclusive clips, polls, and opinions.